What happened at about, divorce happened to me at about 1998, and my friend Mrs. Atwood, who was Brad's widow, they invited me here to bring my birds. And over the last 10 years or so, we became quite close again, returned, and she willed me the house with all of the yard and the pigeon coops and the rest, so I could continue to raise my pigeons. And we had shared that passion for pigeons since I was a little kid with her husband and with her father-in-law. And so on this property, half an acre, there are 7 new buildings of mine, but everything from the back is the original stock and buildings from Brad Atwood and his father Eddie Atwood, who raised pigeons on this property from about 1963 until Brad's death in 1992. And we're having a little bit of an issue with water these days, so you don't see a watered lawn and mowers and stuff like that, but we do make sure that the pigeons have plenty of water. There are about 300 different recognized breeds of pigeons that are all derived down from the feral pigeon, the common feral pigeon that you guys see in the park. Darwin identified it as the blue rock dove. Basically, anybody could go to a book or computer and pull up a blue rock dove and look at what is the genetic grandfather of all of the common pigeons for today. And so what you'll see here is probably about 20 different breeds out of the 300 or more that exist out there in the world. And some of them are birds that are raised to eat. They're called utility pigeons. That's one group of pigeons. There are birds that are bred to fly, and racing homers and rollers that go into the air and do acrobatics. You have birds that go in there for long distance and they fly for, I guess the common record now is in the northern hemisphere, somewhere in Scotland, where it didn't get dark for 2 days, and the birds stay up in the air for 48 hours consistently, flying, just circling above their loft, and then whoever the winner was, basically they come down, but it's like a long distance run, doing a marathon. But pigeons come in all forms, and you know that pigeons and man have had this probably symbiotic relationship for thousands and thousands of years. Before the chickens were even, shall we say, domesticated, pigeons were providing the food source. So the cradles of civilization back in the early times when we were busy stopping chasing our food down and busy starting to grow it in the fields, pigeons and man have had this relationship where they put birds in a dovecote, and the doves or pigeons would raise their youngsters, go out in fields and forage for food all day, and then come back in and raise their young, and then the men would gather them up, and then that would be the protein source. Pigeons provided a food supply for the earliest of civilized men. You'll see pigeons on the walls in the pyramids of Egypt. You'll see them if you go into the history books and you look at any of the vases or the frescoes and that sort of thing from ancient Greece. You'll find pigeons. Pigeons of man. You'll oftentimes find a small child with a pigeon on his hand, in some statuary or something like that. And even Noah in the ark, when Noah released a crow first, and the crow took off and didn't come back and manage himself with the purity of God and all of that, but the dove did, and it came back with an olive branch, as the story goes, and said, well, it stopped raining, the place is all cleansed, and it's all ready to be rehabilitated.
Can you close the door so flies don't get in?
But pigeons and man have had this wonderful interactive relationship for thousands and thousands of years, and we get to see my little part of it here today. I've got about 50 years into it now. I started raising pigeons when I was 6 years old, and I have probably every single day of my life for now 62 years had a pigeon in my possession or in my life. I teach public speaking at Moore Park College and Los Angeles City College.
A 1-minute preview. We're actually one of the nation's most premier pigeon club, going back to 1911. So we're probably the oldest pigeon club in the country, and we're very active. We have over 200 active members and many more fanciers and supporters. Just to give you a brief idea, we do different types of activities throughout the year, but on one show that we hosted in January, we had 8,000 pigeons in that show. There was participants from 22 different countries that came in to observe our show. There was a few thousand people that came and watched it. It's a free show. We have it every year. November, another show is coming. So you guys can look up all the information on our website. I have a kind of like a CD or DVD that we made of that show. we're just selling it for $10. There's a few copies on the table. I have the membership form just in case anybody wants. We do support everyone who wants to become a fancier, raise pigeons, anything. So if you need any help, let us know. Go to our website, look it up. And just to give you a little different type of background about Drew, he's just not a pigeon guy, just a regular pigeon guy. He's actually a well-known pigeon geneticist. And to many of you, it might not make any sense now, but after his talk and after the tour, I'm sure you're going to know what I learned one day, and I was like, my mouth was wide open, oh my God, how can it be possible? Some of these projects that he's taking, it takes 5 to 10 years even to complete. He creates new colors, he transfers colors from one bird to another, and it's not just him, there's a group of people that are like that, and it consists of doctors, researchers, scientists from different areas of the country and actually the whole world. They're connected together. So what you're about to see is very exciting. It's not just, oh, I looked at some pigeons there. But that's why this talk is very important. You need to know the background and how it's done and what it entails to get the full flavor of it. So without any further delay, you folks, if you want to just come in over there and then Drew's going to introduce this.
Okay, you'll see some of them with little beak crests on them, some of them with muffs on them, some of them with real heavy duty dark gold color on them, some with blue color on them. What I'm trying to do is recombinate those 5 or 6 things all onto one pigeon. And so that's the genetic work that's going on in this particular pet. But if you look in here, there are birds with or without crest, with or without muffs, with or without color. And it's a matter of combining all of those things, and we'll go. Yes?
Are they all male or all female? Or?
They are male and female in here, but they also have them individual breeding cages so that I keep track of the parentage. So I have, in here, they're open pens, but I have probably 150 to 200 individual breeding cages. You'll see a lot where everybody has a pair of pigeons with water and food and a nest. And so we might have a particular pair of pigeons that is selected out for whatever characters they're working on. And you'll see, wow, they got babies, they got eggs, whatever. We have a cat with a litter of kittens in here as well. We call them loft cats, but the cats are raised with the birds so that they don't eat the pigeons. But they do love the mice. So when the mouse moves around here, it's gone. Occasionally you'll see the tail of a mouse hanging out of the cat. And it's like, okay, yeah, over here. What this is the final product that began here. You guys recognize this one, right? My guess is that most of you in the place are familiar with a bird that looks like this. This is a
blue rock dove.
Pigeon. It's a pigeon. This is a pigeon. We'll see. Okay. All right. But that's a pigeon. Now this is the kind most likely look like the one at the park, right? And so you find this on your windowsill or on the statue and the like. But they all began looking like this, everything that we know of. And Darwin says that this blue rock pigeon, or the rock dove, is the ancestral form for every single bird that has come in the pigeon realm after that. The Latin name for pigeon is Columbia livia, C-O-L-U-M-B-I-A, Columbia livia. And so the two-name binomial nomenclature from Lamarck is a pigeon. Columbia livia. But I would tell you that not in my own lifetime, but in thousands of years, this bird mutated. Every single one of these guys has 10 flight feathers here and 12 tail feathers. Common pigeon has 12 tail feathers and 10 flight feathers. That's the structure, and that's pretty common. That's the map. But every one of them has those particular characteristics. And the head, anyway, that's a blue pigeon, and it starts here. And that's the basic structure of a pigeon. Now this guy can fly and come home. Is a homing pigeon. But in 1,000 years ago probably, or at least 500 that we have records of, photographs or at least paintings of, that bird mutated a bunch of tail feathers. And by selectively breeding, we select this same pigeon, right? Got the head, and they got 10 flight feathers, same wings, but we just got all these extra tail feathers here, like 13 or 14 or 15. And then we zeroed in on that, and then all of a sudden, by selective breeding and then focusing in on that, we now have pigeons with about 50 to 55 tail feathers. And how cool is that? Anyway, same color, same pigeon, mutated variety came, and we have tail feathers. That's just one of the very mutations. Another mutation that happened, and I guess we could trace this one back into the 1600s. There's a fellow by the name of Aldrovandi, an Italian, who wrote a book, and he did some drawings that included Jacobins. The Germans call them Perukatauben. But the Jacobin pigeon, again, you see a blue. This is the same natural wild type blue color. But what's happened is this whole feather formation then has evolved over the years. And so usually the question is, where's the head? That's usually the first question. Where's the head? It's like hidden out, inside of all this feather formation. Now, amazingly enough, Queen Victoria of England had these in the late 1800s. She looked at them and said, oh, got to have some of that. And so if you've seen the pictures of Queen Victoria, she's wearing this big, huge thing with a collar out to here, right? Well, it's called a Victorian collar. If you have a dog that has an injury, they put a Victorian collar on it to keep it from scratching itself, right? But this collar completely encloses the head. Well, it's named after the Jacobin monks in France, who after the French Revolution were busy wearing these hoods so nobody knew who they were. But Queen Victoria saw it, said she designed her own clothes. So now you see this thing with a Victorian collar, and Victoria sits there with this huge thing around in front, the side, behind, and behind, because she loved the Jacobin pigeons and designed her own clothes based on this guy. And then now we've got other things with Jacobins. We put markings on them, which means I can breed them with color flights or white flights. Supposed to have a white head or tail, whatever. But here's another mutated views on this one. As far as this mutation arriving at fantail, the Jacobin, probably 400 or 500 years worth of mutation. That's all here now. But in my own lifetime, something has happened. And this pigeon mutated in South Africa and was discovered by a fellow named Jack Barkle. Jack Barkle. Now, the interesting story about Jack Barkle, he discovered this mutated variety of pigeon, racing homer. This is exactly the same pigeon as this one, color-wise. If you were to take and look at the melanin, and look at the pigmentation under the microscope, these are exactly the same pattern. They are exactly the same. And so what happened was that you get this color, and it dilutes down. And it diluted down twice. So the mutation is called extreme dilute. Fair enough? So we got this, and then we got a dilution, but then the dilution mutated again, and we got extreme dilute, and that's what this is. And this has happened about 20 years ago in South Africa. Kicker is Jack Barkle came from southern Romania. My friend Mrs. Atwood, who lived on this property and allowed me to bring my pigeons and raise these birds in her backyard, her mother's maiden name was Barkle, and she came from Romania. And so Barkle, Romania, Jacobin pigeons and that with the lemon mutated variety kind of has a special place in my heart. So I have serendipity working on that one for sure. But this pigeon mutated about 20 years ago. So in my lifetime, this showed up out of nowhere. And in Darwin's work, basically, we're going to look at mutated varieties which evolved through the process of selective breeding. And you could take this pigeon, and I did. I made it into a fantail, and I got birds that look like the ones in the park. This disappeared, and all the fantail qualities disappeared. I went, bye! They just zoomed out of there, and I'm thinking, okay, now what do we do, right? Well, but because of the research, we know that this is what they call a sex-linked recessive. So any males that were produced out of that breeding carry this genetic character, right? So what I did was I took the sons out of that fantail homer cross, and I put it back on a fantail, best one I had. And then it would raise lemon daughters. It would raise daughters that has this characteristic with another couple of doses of fantail on it. Over about 5 or 6 year period of time, this one mated to this one, selectively breeding and continuing to mate them back to fantails, keeping the daughters and the sons carrying to produce. Okay, drum roll. Here she is. This is 7 years worth of my life right here. And this is the fantail pigeon, lemon or extreme dilute. And here she is with all the fantail qualities and characteristics. And the one genetic trait that came from the racing homer, well, let me tell you, there's more than just one. Because look at the feather quality compared to that blue one, and look at the feather quality on the racing homer. She has racing homer feather quality on it. that was the dominant trait, and I didn't even know it. It came along with the package. So in the process of finding this pigeon, there were a couple of things that I discovered in the group, which I have written and then photographed and been published as far as some of my discoveries on this particular piece of work. Now you know that we talked about this Jacobin with the feather formation here on the head. Well, here's another typical Jacobin. They mutated not only into blue and feather plump, but they mutated into reds and yellows, things like this. It's an impressive pigeon. This is what I fell in love with. This is what I fell in love with. I go, whoa, I gotta have some of that, right? And so, you know, at $35 a pair when I was a kid, I was way out of my realm. But eventually, mowing lawns and taking care of babysitting and stuff. But when I mated this guy to one of those lemon racing homers, same thing happened again. Every one of the babies looks like the one in the park. What goes on here? Right? So you have to select them again and again and again, and it took me now 7 years, but here she is. Here's the Jacobin quality with the lemon coloration, but that's totally selective breeding away from the racing homer type, but keeping that one genetic trait for color, and then putting the Jacobin structures back in, which are genetically, there's probably 100 different things that allow this feather formation to take place. You have to keep track of about 100 different genetic ingredients, basically, to have a decent Jacobin. But what you see is what happens here in what my friend Bobby O'Brien calls this genetic Disneyland. When he comes, he looks and goes, no, I have no idea. But I'm doing things here. But basically, you see pigeons here that don't exist anywhere else on the planet, except right here in front of you right now. You're looking at these birds. I'm getting midnight telephone calls. I've had published things here. They'll appear on the magazine covers or inside of articles and that. And part of the thing is civilizations around the world, basically, are much more pigeon friendly. The United States used to have pigeons as the number 3 hobbyist behind coin collecting and stamp collecting, and then pigeon raising was right behind it. To the 1920s, 40s, and 50s. If you've ever raised pigeons, raise your hand. There are a couple of us in the room. You have fancy pigeons now, raise your hand. All right, well, there's still 2 of us. Okay, but the idea is that everybody in my neighborhood when I was growing up had pigeons, guys and girls both. I had, 13 kids on my street all raised pigeons and flew them. But now, on this alleyway, there used to be about a dozen pigeon people on this alley. Now, right now, we're the only one left, and I'm second, third generation. Everybody else is gone. We now have a full supply. But the animals in the backyards here are dwindling because the space is now being used by other things. We're civilizing ourselves and getting computer technology. And imagine taking 6 or 7 years to produce one of these. And I'm thinking my son is very, very good at computers. He's busy with the camera there. But you have a computer and it takes him an hour or 15 minutes or something to beat a computer game, right? Well, how many days does it take for a pigeon egg to hatch if it's fertile?
18.
It takes 18 days. And it takes 4.5 to 5 weeks for the baby to mature into an adult, sort of. And then it takes another 6 months for it to go through a molt and to become an adult pigeon itself. So you have this day-to-day thing, caring for and taking care of and feeding and watering and nurturing. And they don't all come out champions. I just want to let you know. They don't all come out champions that way. You have other birds in the variety. But if you look here, this is a bird that is bred typically for color. If the pigeon is wild, but this is an archangel pigeon, and they're bred for, archangels have 2 colors. This one is a gold black-winged archangel. You'll see it's gold on the bottom and black on the top. And these are bred all over the world, particularly in this backyard, but I made it to the Homer. And what did I get? Yeah. Okay. But it took me like only 4 years to get these back. And I have archangels now in lemon. I have Egyptian swifts in lemon. If you look behind you in this pen, there's a whole pen full of lemon West of England tumblers. They're a round-headed bird with muffs on their leg. There's a whole pen full of them over here. Right in there, I guess. I have probably 10 or 12 different varieties of pigeons now, all down from this original racing homer type that I paid $200 for from South Africa. You have additional birds here with feather formations and hood formations. This bird is a Obscura trumpeter. Now they're tame, they're really tame, and what it is they're almost blind. They can't see. They have feathers growing around in their face, feathers growing around on their feet, feathers growing around and behind their head. They have feathers everywhere. And these were developed in Russia, in a place called Obscura, B-O-K-H-A-R-A. But they used to be called Russian trumpeters. But the bird, you see how tame this guy is? But he's not going anywhere, can't see. Can't see to fly. You know, there's no going anywhere. Can see out to the side to eat and fly in the water. And they can fly, they just don't fly very much. And this is the baby one. And I'm working on crossing Jacobins and increasing the hood size on these and trying to keep the muffs up. But this bird has a hood formation and feathers on its feet as well. And those are all mutated from everything here. Mutated from something that looked like that. Every single pigeon on this place, for color, they're pure white or pure black or whatever they are, they all mutated from that. And selectively breeding has brought us to here. Anyway, you have some questions, I know you do. Evan has a baby pig on chiz. Fair enough, but here we go.
Yeah, it goes to the tree.
They might fly to the tree or maybe not, but what happens is, normally they would not stick around into a tree, would fly around in circles and then come back down to here, if you train them correctly. But what that bird will do, he'll hang out there for a while, he might fly back and forth a little bit, but he's going to get hungry, and he's going to be right at this doorstep here this afternoon about 4 or 5 o'clock.
Can you bend down the little so you're more?
I think it's incredible to be so close to something this.
Do they each have their own little personality? Like you get to know.
Well, the Jacobins can be kind of aggressive around other birds.
Well, especially if you're trying to approach its nest when it's having babies or eggs.
And they're like, and then the mama bear personality comes out.
Right.
You even watch them walk around, they kind of.
Are they aggressive compared to other pigeons?
No, these ones are actually quite nice. The most aggressive ones we have are actually the Jacobins. The ones with the hood.
Really?
Yeah. They fight the most.
Does it affect the aerodynamics at all?
Yes.
If feathers are...
I mean, they can't fly probably as well as a homer could.
I think I probably got one that was good.
Yeah.
You guys do a good job keeping them calm now.
Wore himself out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He expended all of his anger on me.
Right.
I'm gonna write a preview about bird out
I think it would be a weird part of the tour.
Yeah, you know we're doing an event with them, right?
Well,